So a few years back, I made a video that was all about shoes for Sean-Nós dancing, but it just wasn't great. It just wasn't concise enough. So I wanted to recreate the video with a slightly different spin on it. And in this video, I'm going to highlight some of my regularly used dance shoes and the reasons that I either love or hate them. And then at the end, I'll give you a few tips and things to consider when you're looking for your own pair. So that being said, it's not a comprehensive list by any means. This is more of just insights into things that I consider important when looking for shoes. So hopefully it gives you a bit of inspiration. And yeah, let's look at my shoes. These were the first pair of shoes that I used for Sean-Nós dancing. I bought them at a vintage clothing store for $30, I think, when I was 18, and I wore them for years. I wanted something that was a little unusual, but ultimately comfort was my biggest concern, which I know is totally ironic now considering that there's literal holes in them, but when I bought them, they were super comfortable. So at the time, my dancing was very high on the balls of the feet, and I found that these shoes were perfect because they were really lightweight. They had enough of a heel to use kind of occasionally, but ultimately the whole makeup of the shoe just really suited movements that were kind of emphasizing more of the front of the foot. So they were perfect for me at the time. Now, the soles were originally leather, but I actually had them resoled with a material called neolite, which is essentially just a really hard, smooth rubber. So I took them down to my local cobbler and he was able to do it. And I found that the sound was actually very similar to leather, but it's just a bit louder, and I think the material is a little bit more durable, so it was kind of a win-win. So when you consider the price of the shoes and then the initial resoling, I think my initial investment was like $60. So this was like a really, really great entry-level shoe for me. So I actually still wear these from time to time, which is a bit embarrassing for me, mostly because this is the exact same pair that I used to compete in back when I was a teenager. These shoes are very old. They have fiberglass tips, which I personally love the sound of and definitely prefer to aluminum taps. I always say that these are my loud shoes, while my other shoes are my acoustic shoes. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that somebody use these for Sean-Nós dancing specifically, but I've made them work for me because I've actually shaved down the tips, so they're a lot less chunky than a brand new pair would be. So next is the crappy pair, and I really need to rename these because I'm actually just realizing how comfortable these are, but I really don't like them as dance shoes. So I followed the same idea as with the red shoes. I bought a cute pair of shoes and took them down to my local cobbler and had them resoled with neolite, which I think is actually the best entry-level method for getting shoes for Sean-Nós dancing. It's just the problem with these is that they just don't suit my style anymore. So I got these right when I started to incorporate a lot more heel work into my dancing, and I just found that the heels were both too soft and also just not high enough. So I found that like suddenly my shins would start screaming in pain because of the overextension that I had to do in order to get that nice heel sound that I was so looking for. So ultimately, cute shoes, but not great for dancing, at least for me. So these are my favorite shoes. And believe it or not, they're actually the first pair of fully custom dance shoes I've ever had. They're made by Just Tap out of New Jersey, and they're just the perfect shoe for what I need them for. They have the best material. The upper leather is super soft, it's really easy to break in, and then the leather soles are really durable and super thick. And they also have the best sound. Like, that's ultimately, I mean, there's so many things about these shoes that I love, but I love the sound that you can get out of these. There's a really nice balance between the toe and the heel. Oftentimes when you're looking at shoes, you find that they only have a good sound either out of just the toe or just the heel and not both. So these shoes are like just amazing for that. The other thing is that they just really suit my style now. So the heels are a little bit higher, so I don't have that overextension problem anymore. And they're They are a little bit heavy, but I personally really like that actually. I think it suits my style nicely. So it's not to everyone's preference, I know, but I think the weight is really nice. Now these shoes were expensive. They cost me about €350, but the quality and also thanks to not being able to dance much over the last few years has meant that they've lasted me a really long time. So I think they're definitely worth the investment. If you're looking for a professional quality shoe, these are definitely ones to consider. So you're considering your own shoes, and we could literally talk about this for hours, but I'll spare you that. I think ultimately, after talking to so many different people about this, ultimately it is a very personal thing, which is frustrating that there isn't like a clear guideline in place, but it is such a personal thing because these shoes have to suit your personal style. And ultimately the best way to get there is just to experiment. Try out these different things. There are really affordable options. There are really expensive options as well. So see what suits your budget, what suits your style, and go from there. So a few tips, pun intended. I think the best low-cost option is the resoling method that I mentioned before. So if you head down to your favorite vintage store or even pull out a pair of shoes that you already have, take them down to your local cobbler and please befriend your cobbler. It's the best thing that you can do when you're a dancer. Have a solid cobbler on your team. Take them down to your cobbler and see if they can resole them with either leather or the Neolite rubber. So again, you're looking for that really hard, smooth rubber. And it's going to be super durable. You're going to get some great sounds out of it, and it's next to zero cost. So definitely check that out. So another option is the Fibreglass. So I think you can send your shoes to any Irish dance shoe company and they'll resole your shoes with Fibreglass. Now I haven't done this myself, I only know of a few people who have, and so I'm not really sure, one, how expensive it is, or two, if they're very picky about what types of shoes they'll actually resole for you. But it's worth considering if you're looking for a loud pair that isn't the kind of tippity tap sound of the aluminum. Definitely get in contact with one of those companies and see if they can help you out. It's also worth befriending your local carpenter. A lot of my dance friends have had custom wooden taps made for their shoes and they sound amazing. Now this is very experimental because certain woods are going to suit dancing better than others and some might sound better than others, but that's just a really fun experiment that you can have with a local tradesperson. So have some fun. Befriend your local carpenter. And of course there's the solid standby, the aluminum taps. I personally hate them, but they are the most accessible for finding any sort of dance shoe tip. So if you don't mind the sound, it could be worth giving them a try. Right, well, that's all for now. I hope that this was insightful. I hope that it was more concise than my previous video. And yeah, I hope that you're inspired to maybe experiment with a few new ideas, new materials. And as always, if you have any questions or if you find that something works really well for you, please let me know. I'm always happy to hear how you're getting on. And yeah, best of luck and happy dancing!